but there were several Chris Hubers. So
please rise.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Welcome everybody to the Iowa City Noon Rotary Club. Happy Thursday. Beautiful day out today. If you like a little wet snow, I guess. Beautiful enough, you know. That's what we get for living in Iowa. We will get our meeting started today with Aaron leading us off in America the Beautiful. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, forever winds of grain, for purple mountain majesty, above the fruited plain. America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. I pledge allegiance. You may be seated. Okay, we've got Ron Ettinger here to tell us who our guests and visiting Rotarians are today. If you've got a guest, please make your way up here to the left of the podium and be ready to introduce them. Ron?
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I do not have a list of visiting Rotarians. So if somebody is here who is a visiting Rotarian, could you please stand up and introduce yourself? As I don't see anybody, all those with guests are invited to present them. Thank you.
Seriously, people. Heather Croskery, and I'm thrilled to have Jim Jackson joining us again, and hopefully we'll get an application in.
I'm proud to introduce the new CEO of the Midwest One Bank, who has come to us from Florida and previous to that, Oregon, and he grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. Meet Chip Reeves.
Yes, I'm happy to have again my guest David Lemire with me, we're going to get into orientation here in the 25th. So David, welcome and stand up. And David's in the travel business. His office is in North Liberty, so if you want to go see him, he'd welcome that. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julia Winter, and I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker for today's meeting, Ryan Dickson. And we'll give a little more of an intro a little later.
If there are no more guests, welcome to Rotary, everybody.
Thank you, Ron. And yes, welcome everybody. Okay, we are going to continue our musicality with Devin and Aaron leading us in really our club's favorite song, Smile. No mic needed. We need a mic. But I don't see on the microphone.
Okay.
Your voice is beautiful.
Whatever. You're nice. All right, I want everybody singing along. You know the words. Smile and the world smiles with you. Sing a song. Don't be weary, just be cheery all day long. Whenever your trials, your troubles, and your cares seem to be more than you can really bear, smile. The world smiles with you. Sing a song.
Well done, everybody. Good leadership on the music, fellas. Thank you very much. Okay, it's announcement time. If you have a Rotary related announcement, come on up. Any takers? I've got a few. We're light on announcements today. That's okay. We've got 2 goat riders coming up, so buckle your seatbelts for that. One quick announcement. You have until next Friday to take our survey. So please, if you haven't already, there's the link floating around everywhere. It'll be in our newsletter, and I'll send it out on Monday again in my email. But please take about 15 minutes and knock that survey out. Give us a lot of good, honest responses. We would very much appreciate it. And then again, mark your calendars for the district conference, April 22nd. We are going to work up 3 different avenues of service that morning. So it's going to be something for everybody. And then that evening, there's a lot of fellowship, speakers, and things like that. And I see we got a nice plethora of announcements conjured up here. So I'm going to invite Tara to take the mic.
I can do tiptoes. Hello, everybody. Tara Monetos, chair of the note-taking committee. If you've seen, our notes have been a little delayed. We're having some issues with the website. They changed the formatting, so if anyone understands coding templates on websites, we could definitely use some help. Even better, if you know someone in the community that should join our club and help us with this, let's do that. So please reach out to me if you have any interest in assisting us. Thank you.
Very quickly, the 2023 Ronald McDonald House Golf Outing that is co-hosted by Iowa City Noon Rotary. Registration is open. You can go online and sign up your foursome now before they fill in.
Greetings, everybody. Just a quick heads up that the Iowa Most trip is happening starting this Saturday, and that will be the first trip since the pandemic, the 17th year for the cleft palate team in Guatemala. And so if you're on Facebook, check us out. And also you can always look at iowamos.org, and we try to post updates every day of what's going on. So yay Rotary, another cleft palate trip. Thank you.
Eventually you'll see my face and you'll think AED. Last week, Ryan delivered 2 AEDs to a for-profit business. Yesterday, I delivered an AED to our place, which is supported by NAMI, and it's because of you and our Rotary committee and team. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Yes, getting those AEDs out there far and wide so that they're everywhere. Okay. You guys ready for a goat ride or 2? Are Lisa and JJ ready? We're going to say Lisa first. Does that sound all right, Lisa? All right, come on up. You know the drill, or maybe you don't. A lot of you do. Caleb will be timing this. Lisa has exactly 3 minutes, not a second longer, to tell us all about herself. And once Caleb holds up that red sign, if we get there, you just need to applaud because Lisa did such a great job. So Lisa, take it away.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Mills. I am in the Business Development Department for ServPro, which is a fire and water mitigation restoration company. Prior to locating to Iowa, I resided where I was born in Bakersfield, California, raised cattle, was a second grade teacher. I kind of felt second grade was perfect for me because they weren't quite babies, but they weren't quite little snots, and they weren't quite as tall as me. Was after 15 years of teaching, my daughter, when she went into high school, I decided to follow another dream of mine, which was going into the real estate industry. So I am still currently an active broker in California. I do a couple of transactions here and there. How I ended up in Iowa, my daughter was finishing up her PhD, and so I was kind of commuting a little bit back and forth. At one point, she was like, "Mom, you need to just move here." So I was just like, "Okay, find me a job and I'll move." Didn't really think that was going to happen. Actually flew home on like a Thursday ServPro called me on a Tuesday. I flew back out here on a Friday, then flew back home, and they called me and said I had a job. So I basically had 2 weeks to pack up the house and relocate. And I basically moved to Iowa with 2 check-ins and a carry-on. And so I've had to rebuild my boot collection. If anyone knows me, I have a fetish with boots, so you'll probably always see me in boots, preferably cowboy boots. And any other interesting facts about me? I love to line dance, so a lot of times you can catch me at Wildwood, getting my little 2-step on. I also have gotten involved with the HBA, so I am part of the Women's Council with the local HBA, and I'm also on the executive community committee with the Iowa City Area Business Partnership, also known as the Chambers. So that's all about Lisa.
Very well done, Lisa. Now for JJ, come on up.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is JJ Hardy. Has the time already started? Okay, good. I'm more than happy to be clapped off, so I hope it did. So yeah, my name is JJ Hardy. I'm married with 2 teenage children. I'm originally from the Iowa City, Coralville, sometimes Riverside area. I spent a career in the U.S. Army. I did transportation logistics management for the time I was in, and retired from that in 2018. Since then, I have been very active out in the community. I'm now an ESGR rep. I serve with with Lisa as an ambassador for the business partnership here in Iowa City and Coralville, and I with Rotary, and I'm with Kiwanis. So I really enjoy volunteering in the community. They get me into the Salvation Army and all kinds of venues, and it's a lot of fun. I recently started a business about 7 months ago as a leadership coach and consultant. I like to help people with leadership development. Past that, I mean, not real exciting. I'm here, and I'm happy to be a part of Rotary, and any committees that you guys have that you'd like to get me involved with. Please hit me up if any of you are interested in leadership development. The same. I like to talk to that stuff. I'm kind of a leadership nerd, so that's all I have.
Thank you very much, JJ and Lisa. Welcome officially, or even more officially, to the club. Now everybody knows, some of your interests and backgrounds. So thank you very much for sharing, and good job keeping them both under 3 minutes. We didn't have to have that embarrassing applaud off the podium. So, okay, we are ready for our program speaker today. Julia, would you like to come back up and give your more formal introduction of Ryan, please?
I'll just use tiptoes. Thank you so much, President Ryan. Sorry, thank you. Okay, so it's again my pleasure to introduce my colleague and our speaker today, Ryan Dickson. Ryan is the Director of Crisis Helpline Services at Community Crisis Services, just over the train tracks. And our organization has been in Iowa City for 53 years this year. And Ryan's going to present about a topic that a lot of folks might think of as a secondary service of our organization. Lots of folks know us as the food bank, but we have this mental health service as well. And we actually started as a mental health care provider. So quick bio on Ryan. After graduating with his bachelor's degree in psychology, Ryan joined Community as a volunteer in 2018. Soon after joining, Ryan took on roles helping train other volunteers and assisted with research on the developmental helping model, which is foundational to our client-centered approach. I believe this was presented in Ireland? Colorado, okay. He's done some really cool research that has had some national and international recognition pretty much. So, and This research identified the most helpful skills to use with persons in crisis and was selected for a presentation at the American Association of Suicidology Conference in 2019. He then joined staff as a crisis counselor, continuing to analyze data and identify trends for the program and train staff and volunteers. For the lost my place there, before being promoted to manager at the onset of COVID-19. Ryan oversaw a massive program expansion due to the increased demand placed on crisis services by the pandemic, seeing a 3,600% increase on some service lines. During this time, legislation was passed changing the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline to the 988 Suicide and Crisis Line. This necessitated another incredible staff increase and expansion of administration. To that end, Ryan was promoted to the Crisis Helplines Director and continues to build on the vision outlined by 988 legislation. Ryan has trained hundreds of volunteers and staff in the developmental helping model and applied suicide intervention skills training, and is here to share with you the details about 988, how it impacts Iowa and our community, and ways you can help that may seem small but have a continued marked positive impact. So please join me in welcoming Ryan.
All right, thank you, Julia, for the introduction. Thank you to Rotary Club for the opportunity to speak with you all today. And thank you all for being here for what is an incredibly important topic to me, especially on such a lovely day as today. So as Julia mentioned, there may be potentially sensitive content in this presentation. Our focus will be mostly on infrastructure and its impact, but during the Q&A and throughout the presentation, there may be some mention of suicide. This is an issue that impacts all of us directly or indirectly. So if you feel the need to step out, no disrespect taken, we understand that. And furthermore, if you feel the need to debrief or talk about that afterward, I will make myself available for that discussion. So before we get into it, I would like to do a quick sort of survey here. How many of you had actually heard of 988 before you came today? That is impressive. I've never seen numbers like that. So that's excellent. You all have a lot more awareness of this than most groups that I end up speaking to. So let's talk a little bit about what it actually means to dial 988. So the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline used to have a long 800 number, 1-800-273-TALK. They found that that was quite difficult to remember in a time of crisis. So legislation was passed to shorten it to 988. What happens on a crisis call through 988? You can do crisis and suicide intervention through phone, chat, or text. It's non-judgmental. We don't define what the crisis is. It can be anything from I'm having really dark thoughts and I'm unsure how to stay safe, all the way to I'm having a bad day, they messed up my order at Wendy's, whatever you're dealing with that day. We provide information and referral to those in need. A lot of people find themselves in need of more intense resources than we can provide, and we will be the first doorway on that path to recovery. We follow up with clients who call in. Research shows that the most effective thing you can do, apart from any of the advanced skills that I'll be talking about, is simply follow up with somebody, showing that you care, that you are invested in their safety, in their outcome, is the best thing you can do to ensure someone chooses to stay safe. And so that's something we do with everyone who expresses what we call suicidal ideation on a phone call, chat, or text. We also provide support for third-party callers. A not small percentage of people who call us are looking for help for people that they care about. They're not sure where else to turn. So we're an excellent resource for that, helping you find local resources, guiding you through those difficult conversations with friends and loved ones about what they may be experiencing that you feel totally unprepared for. We've got your back. So I mentioned we don't define crisis. What is a crisis? Anything. Problem with friends, family, finances, relationship, serious illness, anything that you identify as stressful. So there are a couple different services out here that people may want to contact when they're feeling down. When I say we don't really define what a crisis is, that's true, but we're also there to help you through it and help process it. If it's an issue like, you know, I'm lonely and I just kind of need somebody to talk to about the lovely weather or the sports team or something like that, perhaps a service called a warm line would be more appropriate. We are more focused on the more intense emotional aspects of a call, whatever you find overwhelming. Okay, what services are actually offered? I think many people were aware of the 800 number that I mentioned earlier. That's recently been shortened to 988. The telecarriers across the nation have adopted that even before the launch. So anywhere in the country that you dial 988, it will route you to the center closest to your area code. Right? So if you all have Iowa numbers, you will likely get our center across the street there. Chat was also an option recently, fairly recently, since the inception of the Lifeline. I believe it's 20 years old, and they started that maybe a decade ago. You can visit 988lifeline.org if you prefer a text medium. That's really popular. Chat and text are really popular with the youth demographic. We at Community are mostly focused on the chat and text side of things. 50% of our respondents are aged 24 and younger on chat and text. It's inverse for the phones, usually retired clients or that sort will prefer to do phone calls. Newly promoted is the text option for 988. 988 discovered some time ago, well, they're called 988 now. Previously, they were the Lifeline, that people were texting the 800 number, even though that wasn't promoted. So Community was lucky enough to be part of that pilot program, and we received texts from all over the country. Recently, with the launch of 988, they've started promoting that, and we've seen a marked increase on that service, as we'll discuss shortly. Right. What can you expect when you call 988? So most calls in the nation are answered in less than 10 minutes. 988 legislation was passed that appropriately funded for the first time in its 20-year history. So this used to be a much higher number, closer to 30 or 40 minutes based on the demand. And now we have at least 20 centers in the network. Community is lucky enough to be one of those to reduce the speed of answer down to 10 minutes. Even better for chat and text, we've gotten it down to 20 or 30 seconds. That's almost instantaneous, right? So that's incredible. You will also reach a counselor who has been trained in assist. So every center, like Community, has different training models that they use. Julia mentioned ours is a developmental helping model, but you can be assured that anyone who you talk to on the Lifeline has gone through ASSIST, which stands for Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training. This is the gold standard in suicide intervention training provided by LivingWorks. I'm a trainer, part of a network of hundreds across the country, actually across the globe. They do this Australia, Canada, Europe, all over the place. So you can rest assured that they have the best training possible for that type of intervention. I think a big question that a lot of us have thinking about this is, what sort of things can I do to help? Or maybe you're thinking like, I don't think I could do that kind of work. You might be surprised. Here's what a typical crisis intervention might look like. These are the skills that my research identified as being the most helpful, chief among them being empathy here. What I also hope you take away from this is that these are things that people just kind of do, right? These are natural instincts we have. This is a description of what a helpful conversation looks like and what to focus on. So initially, we'll start with empathy, validating the feelings, not judging or stigmatizing what they're going through with a reason for it. We'll ask what we call OEQs, or open-ended question, to draw out the story thoroughly. And we'll engage in awareness and attentiveness. We'll be listening for those cues that tell us this is going well, perhaps this needs to go in a different direction. Maybe this isn't exactly the service they need. Maybe I need to escalate their level of care. We'll continue on with additive empathy, which means picking up on those feelings that are unstated, frustrations that are hidden, anger that they don't want to give voice to. Perhaps we'll use self-disclosure minimally, saying, yes, I've been there myself. I know how painful this is, and I also know that there's a way through this. Perhaps we can reach that together. Confrontation is kind of a scary word. That's simply pointing out the discrepancies in what they think or believe or are saying. So if you have somebody say, you know, I'm in a dark place, I'm a really bad student, you might point out, well, you also mentioned that, you know, you've got a 3.7 GPA. It seems like, you know, you're doing okay. Helping them find the positives there. And immediacy is just addressing the elephant in the room. So, you know, if things aren't going well or you think they need to go in a different direction, you can be direct and say, I think actually this other service would be more helpful. Finally, we end with action planning. We want to end every contact with a plan to stay safe just for now. Suicide is a huge decision. You're not going to get somebody to swear it off for the rest of their life over the course of one phone call. We're more like triage. So what we'll help them do is come up with a plan to stay safe for now. If we get nothing else through the phone call, we want a safe for now. Who will you reach out to? What supports will you need? What activities will you use to distract yourself? That sort of thing. Okay. So how does this service actually work? How is it funded? How is it structured? How do the calls get where they need to go? SAMHSA is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. They're the highest level of government that oversees this program. They secure funding from the government and distribute that to Vibrant. Vibrant was a very large crisis center, much like ourselves, and they won the bid to manage that contract. Then they subcontract with centers like us at Community. We administer the chats and phone calls locally as well as nationally. We administer a state queue, so the chats that come into Iowa start with us. And we also administer, we're members of the national backup. So if something happens in another state and that center can't answer, it'll start making a circuit and perhaps it will hit us. So the takeaway there at the bottom is, you know, if a center can't answer it, stay on. Somebody will get to you. I mentioned earlier that it's routed to the closest based on location. So for phone calls and texts, that will look at your area code. For chats, they'll base that off of the zip code that the person enters. All right. So why was this change made in the first place? What does it actually mean? It's more than just shortening the number, right? Which that has actually really significant impacts on access levels for people in need. Shortening it makes it easy to remember, which also increases level of access for those in need. Okay? Text as an option is being promoted. I'll have some stats here in a minute. I believe in the first 3 months of launch, we saw a 750% increase in text from Iowa alone. Right, yeah, that's incredibly surprising. So that also increases our access to the many rural areas in Iowa that may not have reliable internet access. They can't use chat. They don't have great cell service. They can text in and have a meaningful conversation that way. Also, a big focus of this is the expansion of the crisis care continuum. So I mentioned there's basically 2 contracts here. We have the national contract and we have a state contract. So Iowa is very invested in making sure that calls that go to 911 that are perhaps more mental health related are routed instead to us more appropriately so we can handle that. Consequently, if we have somebody at imminent risk, which means they may be about to act on their plan, we can communicate with 911 and get them the emergency services that they need. Generally, that's a last case scenario that we'll do everything we can to avoid that. We want the least invasive intervention possible. But what crisis continuum expansion mostly looks like will be the first step. And if we can't handle it, we'll send that to mobile crisis response. Now, our mobile crisis response, and Julie, if you have numbers on this, maybe you can correct me. I believe it's an 80% diversion rate from hospitals, maybe even higher. It's higher, 90 since guideline opened, okay? So we don't collect data that tells us that, but we know most of our contacts end with a positive resolution where we don't even have to make referral. So 90% of that, I mean, we're talking smaller and smaller the more you increase services, the amount of intervention that's needed here. And also increases youth access to mental care. Studies will show that depression and anxiety among youth is on the rise for many reasons, economic, through the pandemic. They've missed socialization and developmental milestones through being unable to attend school at critical periods, things like that. And they much prefer text for communication. So we've seen a huge increase in the amount of youth who contact the service through text as well. All right. So what does this mean for Iowa? So pre-launch, 988 launched in the summer of this year. We answered a combined total of 100 originating chats in Iowa on the Lifeline. Post-launch, from July to December, that increased to 2,360. November had approximately 10 times the number of chat texts as June. So we've seen the volume just spike on this. And about a third of Iowa chat texts are either from minors or concerned for them. So parents calling concerned about their kids, that sort of thing. That lines up pretty closely with national numbers, which is about 25%. All right, so I talked a little bit already about expanding the continuum of crisis care. I just want to reiterate what the flow of that might look like. You can call, chat, or text 988. Usually we'll be able to resolve that contact. Resolve that contact with the least invasive intervention possible. You can get somebody to intervene on their own behalf and make a safety plan. Perhaps they feel they need more intense care or to talk to somebody in person. So we have mobile crisis response that will go out in a team and talk to them for hours if they need to, and also do continued and repeated follow-ups. As we mentioned, that's the most effective thing you can do. That is the majority of the work that they do, is checking in on them, seeing how they're doing. Connection to access centers like GuideLink. Many people in the community aren't even aware that mobile crisis resource or response is available as a resource, or what GuideLink can do for them. We can be the primary point of contact to disseminate that information. We can also do continued follow-up, as mobile crisis does. Perhaps they need connection to other local resources like homeless shelters, things like that. It's not called basic needs anymore. We recently changed it. Financial support, if they need help with bills and that sort of things that are contributing to their suicidal ideation, we can connect them with that department. Okay? We can also help connect them to long-term options like therapy. A lot of people don't even know where to begin with that. We have databases that list out therapists, their rates, what insurance they take, all kinds of useful things like that. People don't even know where to begin. We've got the information. All right. So the big question here, what can you do to help? The main thing is talk about it. I was so relieved to see most of the room raise their hand here. That's not the experience that I have. Generally. And a big reason for that is that even though funding was marked for expansion of the program to hire counselors and administration, not any was marked for promotion of the service nationally or at the state level. That's changed, and they're going to begin that this January for the state and for the national. There's going to be a marketing push on both levels there. So just talking about it. Hey, did you know about this thing? 988's new. It's got a whole bunch of new features that you've learned about today. It can get you where you need to be if you're feeling strongly that you can't stay safe or have any other crisis. Really important to destigmatize this. Somebody tells you that, listen patiently, non-judgmentally, and you don't have to feel like you have to be the one to save this person. To have that conversation, simply say, yes, I hear you and I know where you can go. Let's get you in touch with community. Let's get you in touch with 988. Of course, donating time and resources. While we do have appropriate funding, that is dictated how we spend that in certain ways. And it's not always allocated for things that we desperately need, like administration and higher level things. I don't believe there's like funding in there for a business office or accountant or HR, that sort of thing. So donations and time that you can offer in training is incredibly helpful. Right, state and local governments emphasizing the need for this service. We are in contract with the state to provide this on a local level, but currently they are not 100% on board, right? We're having to make our case right now with our answer rates, our impact reports, that this is a needed service. Here it is, and they need to hear from you. I neglected to put it on here, but community offers assist training free to community members. We need at least 8 people to make a class happen. We generally get between 15 and 30. We would love to see all of you there. It's 2 days, 8 hours each day. We try to have some on the weekends and some on the weekdays so that people can make it. It's a really profound, impactful class, and I hope to see some of you there in the future. But that is another huge thing you can do to be prepared. All right. So I've given you just a very brief overview of 988 and what we do. What questions do you have for me? Yes. Yes, absolutely. So the question is, do we provide assist training to emergency services, or do they simply refer to us? We provide that training to anyone in the community who wants it free of charge. Organizations may also contact us to set up individual trainings. We are doing one with JECC soon to talk about the appropriate times to forward calls from 911 to 988. We'd be happy to do an assist with emergency services as well. Yes, it'd be incredibly impactful, I agree. Crisis intervention training. I don't have a lot of involvement in that. I have done role plays with that. Every police officer in Coralville and Iowa City is CIT trained, right? So this is crisis intervention training. I believe that's like a week-long training where they do role plays. They act out scenarios with every kind of mental health crisis, substance abuse crisis. Professionals like myself will come in and act out things that we've seen so they get as close to that real-world experience as they can. It's a very powerful training. Glad to see that 100% of our law enforcement have gone through that. It's quite meaningful. Yes, law enforcement liaison. We've recently expanded that. So we have a person who works directly with Iowa City PD. Did we just add one to Coralville? Okay, right. And we just added Unity for North Liberty, I think. I'm not entirely sure on that, but basically we have somebody who interfaces with the police department. They will go out on calls with them if they think it's like a mental health crisis. It's more appropriate for a counselor than a police officer to respond. Also, there are different models across Iowa. In Iowa City, we prefer to use a mobile crisis response where 2 counselors go out. But if you're in other parts of Iowa or other states even, you may have what's called a co-responder model where a police officer goes out with a counselor, but we prefer the counselor approach. So yes. If a person call, how will I find you if you call 988? Is that the question? Okay. So we actually don't track anyone. We have some protocols in place. If somebody, let me specify this right off the bat. We only do this in the case where we cannot get a safety plan and 4 qualifications are met. Does the person have a plan for suicide? Do they have the means to carry out the plan? Do they have a relatively immediate time frame, which we define as less than 24 hours? And are they unwilling or unable to safety plan? Perhaps they indicated to us that they have a plan and then they hung up. What then, right? We would need to do an active intervention to ensure their safety. So how do we do that? Both phone and chat result in us contacting the police. We have a resource database that tells us their nearest public safety access point. We'll call that. We'll give them the phone number. Then the police take it over from there. They do the phone number to address resolution. A lot of them are not familiar with an IP address. Let's just get a survey here. How many here are familiar with an IP address? Most of us. Okay. So the police have the authority to contact the internet service provider and say, hey, there's an imminent risk situation. Here is an IP address. Are you able to resolve that to a physical address? And then they'll do the welfare check based off that. Yes. Absolutely. I think ideally it would be instant, or as close to the chat numbers as we could get, that 20, 30 seconds. Our data shows that for a phone call, typically people will hang up in the first 15 seconds. That's really disheartening, right? I will say, while it's not where we want it, we have seen amazing strides since the beginning of 988 with 30 to 40-minute wait times down to 10. We're on the way there. We're not there yet. This is also a national effort, right? So I should be clear about that. Those are national numbers that we have. Our average speed of answer for phone calls is 20 seconds. We're doing okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. So the question for the Zoom folks is, how does this work with cell phones being what they are? If I'm from New York and I have area code XYZ, but I live in Iowa, what's going to happen to my call? It will be routed to New York. You can, when you call in, if you wish, say, explain your situation. I have an area code from New York, but I live in Iowa. May I please be connected to an Iowa center? And they have the database that'll route you to us appropriately, if that's what you want. If you prefer to just talk to the first person, you can do that too. Yes. Oh, goodness. Oh, how many centers? Okay. So we share responsibility of the crisis service with Foundation 2, and that's it right now. So they are primary on phone calls, and if they don't get a phone call, it will route to us. And I apologize, I'm forgetting your rule to restate the question, and I may have lost track of it. How many centers are there in Iowa that handle this? Is that the main? Okay, yes. So if they are unable to answer the call, it will route to us. If for some reason we were unable to answer the backup call, that'll hit the national network. So somebody will pick that up. Similarly for chats, we're primary on that. If we don't get that, it'll go to Foundation 2 and then hit the national network, which we may also respond to. It may flow away from us and then back into us immediately, so we get a second chance. Yes. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Yeah. So how large an area do we cover locally, regionally, nationally? I won't speak for mobile crisis. That's not my area of expertise. I know that's several counties. For the crisis chat helplines, we talk to basically anyone from anywhere. The text is routed statewide, and then for the national backup chats we do, that's for the entire country. If we get somebody who's outside our area of service, we also have databases that we can look at to see what is the most appropriate level of connection for them based on where they are. So we're secure there. Yes. Yeah. Okay, that's a good question. So first off, the comment was Iowa City PD has put 988 on their police vehicles to increase awareness. We're grateful for that measure. Secondly, how do we get resources out to people to be more preventative rather than intervention? I think that's a difficult question for me to answer, primarily because my program is focused on intervention. But things like community awareness, having these kind of meetings, asking people like us to speak, letting people know what is out there. If they prefer, they might call mobile crisis directly. And as I mentioned, a lot of people aren't aware that that's an option. So you can have people come out to you. Again, our model for crisis care, I think part of the definition of crisis, again, we don't like to define the content of a crisis, but a crisis is sort of immediate, acute, short-term, intense, right? So you may not be able to prevent the crisis. If you want to do long-term things like that, I might suggest something like therapy or inpatient care. Fair enough. Julia, you had something. All right. Yes. Yes. GuideLink is an access center down by, is it Shelter House, I think? Yeah. Southgate, thank you. They do detox, they do 23-hour observation, they have crisis stabilization beds there, they can provide medication and assessment, things like there. And I forget to restate the question. So what is GuideLink? And I've lost the thread. What is our connection to GuideLink? I'm not sure quite how to explain it in short terms. Julia, you want to take that one? Okay. Yeah, come on up. This is a guest speaker, Julia Erickson.
It's been
Winter.
Winter for almost 2 years. Thanks, Ryan. So community provides triage staff at GuideLink. So I believe we have about a dozen different folks that work there 24/7, and they perform intake triage assessments. So they are determining if folks that walk in the door would benefit most from the sobering or detox units, from crisis stabilization or crisis observation, and then connecting them with the other services that work out of GuideLink.
Thank you, Julia Winter. I'm updating you on my phone right now. All right, thank you. Sorry, I think I saw Ryan over here, and I'll get to you. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So the question is, how do we organize a follow-up given its necessity and its impact? We will ask for consent on every contact if they would like a follow-up. If they say yes, we ask them their preferred mode of contact, be that email or phone number. If it's email, it tends up not being a very in-depth conversation. We just say, hey, we wanted to check up on you. We know X, Y, and Z was happening. How are you feeling today? And if they tell us, I still need more help, then we'll give them appropriate resources. Phone calls may become a more extended conversation. We don't do text follow-up. Yeah, and if they need that on a continued basis, we'll continue to do that. 100%, yeah. We get a lot of people who call for, actually anxiety and depression are top 2 reasons people might call. So what might we do if somebody calls with a panic attack? We will walk them through grounding exercises, become more intimately aware of your surroundings and less focused on the perceived threat. We may work through breathing exercises, increase your oxygen intake, help you regulate your emotions that way. We may talk through the source of the anxiety, what's going on for you, give them a space to vent those fears and frustrations in a way they may not have had before. There are a number of different things we can do to really alleviate that. And as you mentioned, it's acute, right? So we can just keep them talking and engaged. Eventually that will dissipate on its own. That's really probably one of the main things we offer that a lot of people take for granted as helpful is just simply space to speak and share what you need to. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. So the comment is this would be excellent to talk to high schools about. We do have a mobile crisis youth counselor who is intimately connected to the high schools in the area. We also administer an emotional support line for the University of Iowa that's marketed through them, so they can call and contact that line specifically for UI students. Julia Winter.
Thank you. JJ, we also actually, we have 2 youth-specific mobile crisis counselors now. So we'll have the ability to answer at multiple schools at one time. So that's really important to us. And then we are working on a project with the university and the Iowa City Downtown District to have crisis resources listed in all of the restrooms of the downtown late night kind of facilities, because we recognize that a big population that uses those is those college age students. So it'll have resources on 988, GuideLink, the university counseling line, few other things as well. So those will be up soon. And I believe Big Grove has 988 posters in their restrooms as well. So that's for them. Yeah.
We've also trained, I believe they're called family support specialists that each school in Iowa has in assist. So they're keenly aware of how to help as well. I'm not great about watching time. How are we doing? About wrapped up. All right. Thanks again to the Rotary Club for having me. This topic is incredibly important to me. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you. Please take this message and go forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ryan and Julia, for stepping in on that. Very important topic and very intriguing that we're leading the way here right in Iowa City. We will wrap up this meeting with, actually first, I will point out, we will donate $10 to the Polio Plus Foundation on your behalf for thanks in speaking to us today. And that'll put 70 vaccines for polio out into the world. So thank you very much for your time, Ryan. And we will wrap up the meeting with the 4-way test that I will put up on the screen. Of the things we think, say, and do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Have a great day, everybody.